After being secretly married for 3 years, he suddenly proposed a divorce. Su Hua forced a smile through the pain, took the money and left. From then on, she embarked on an extraordinary journey. She began to repair and appraise antiques, effortlessly navigating the world of antiques. After the divorce, the once overbearing CEO, upon seeing his ex-wife on TV who stunned everyone with her charm, deeply regretted his decision. He transformed into a doting husband, chasing after her all over the world. "Honey, I give you my heart and my life. Please come back." After a passionate embrace, Su Hua was glistening with sweat. Gooby Eyes Yan didn't go to take a shower as he used to. Instead, he hugged her from behind, holding her tightly as if he wished to press her into his body. Su Hua felt as if she was about to melt in his embrace. She was unexpectedly filled with joy, nervousness, excitement, and a tinge of sadness. In the 3 years of their marriage, this was the first time he had held her like this. She had a feeling of being deeply loved. Her heart was pounding like a startled deer. Slowly, she turned around and hugged him tightly, wearing a sweet and beautiful smile on her face, as if she was embracing the whole world. They hugged each other for a long time. Gooby Eyes Yan released her, put on his clothes and sat up. He took out a pack of cigarettes from the drawer, skillfully shook out one, lit it, and took a deep drag. White smoke curled up, blurring the outline of his handsome and heroic face. It was impossible to see his expression clearly, nor could one tell what he was thinking. He didn't even notice that the cigarette between his fingers was almost burning his hand. Su Hua gave a light cough. "Didn't you quit smoking a long time ago?" Gooby Eyes Yan extinguished the cigarette, stared into her eyes with a profound gaze. After a few seconds of silence, he said, "Su Hua, let's part ways." It was like a bolt from the blue. Su Hua was stunned. Her burning heart cooled down and instantly turned icy cold, her face pale. She stared at him in a daze and asked in a slightly trembling voice, "Did I do something wrong?" "No." "Then why do we have to separate?" "The SUO is back. I'm sorry." SUO was his ex-Gerdline. SUO, the future heir of a lock company. Su Hua's heart ached as if cut by a knife. For 3 years, they had spent every day together, supporting each other through thick and thin, but it all came to naught with the return of that woman. He didn't love her, and that was her greatest mistake. Overwhelmed by a sense of loss, defeat, and sadness, Su Hua bit her lip tightly. Her body going stiff, she fumbled with her fingers to put on her clothes and was about to get out of bed. Gooby Eyes Yan placed his hand on her shoulder and asked softly, "Where are you going?" Su Hua tried desperately to hold back her ears. "To make breakfast. You've always made it before. Let me do it today. You can sleep a little longer." His voice was deep and gentle. Su Hua let out a soft "man" and lay down, pulling the quilt over her wet eyes. After he left, she got out of bed and dressed into the bathrooms. He couldn't hold back any longer and burst into tears. Her ears strewn down like beads off a broken string and just wouldn't stop. She had never known that loving someone could make her heart ache so much. As if a piece of her heart had been torn out, the pain made her unable to stand steadily. She leaned against the wall and cried until she was shaking. After an unknown amount of time, Gooby Eyes Yan called her downstairs for breakfast. Su Hua responded and splashed cold water on her face, rinsing her eyes again and again. But no matter how much she rinsed, her eyes remained red and bloodshot. When she went downstairs, Gooby Eyes Yan was waiting for her in the dining room. He was wearing a well-tailored high-end suit, his long legs were straight beneath the dark trousers, and his overall demeanor was gentle and noble. Just standing there, he exuded an overwhelming presence. Su Hua silently walked over and sat down at the dining table. Gooby Eyes Yan leaned forward slightly and looked at her red eyes with an especially tender gaze. "Did you cry?" Su Hua tilted her face up and forced a smile at him. "I accidentally got some facial cleanser in my eyes while washing my face. I'll be okay in a while. Be more careful next time. Let's eat." Gooby Eyes Yan sat down beside her, picked up the chopsticks, and handed them to her. Su Hua reached out to take them and lowered her eyes. Looking at his beautiful fingers resting on the chopsticks, the sumptuous breakfast gave off an alluring aroma. But neither of them touched their food. She had never had a meal as sorrowful as this in her life. Half an hour later, the food remained untouched. Su Hua put down her chopsticks, supported herself on the edge of the table, and stood up. She said softly, "I'm going to pack my luggage." Gubi Aixian's hand holding the chopsticks tightened slightly. "There's no rush." Su Hua gave a bitter smile given the situation. If she didn't leave quickly, was she going to wait to be kicked out? She turned around and went upstairs. She threw her things into the suitcase one by one. After packing for a while, she finally zipped it up with a click and carried it downstairs. Gubi Aixian came up to meet her and reached out for the suitcase. "Let me take it." "No need." Su Hua pulled the suitcase and walked out with her back straight. As she walked through the courtyard and looked at the familiar flowers and trees, she couldn't help but feel sentimental. People are not plants or trees. How can they be without feelings? For 3 years, the so-called love that grew over time had turned out to be only her own wishful thinking. She had loved him wholeheartedly, with both passion and affection. But what was the use? Let go. Just let go. The two of them walked one after the other to the gate, where the car was already waiting outside. Gubi Aixian handed her a check. "Thank you for your company over the past 3 years." Su Hua stood there stubbornly, not knowing whether she should take it or not. Gubi Aixian forcefully stuffed the check into her suitcase. "Take it. You'll have a lot of expenses in the future." Su Hua responded dryly. She raised her head and greedily looked at his beautiful lips, straight nose, and handsome eyebrows and eyes, remembering how he had covered her eyes with his own on the bed, making the whole sky filled with stars ever since. Her heart ached as if being wrung, and the pain was beyond words. She thought that one day in her life, she would surely be able to stop loving him. Would it take 3 years? 10 years? Maybe even a lifetime. Loving someone seems easy. Forgetting him is incredibly difficult. Gubi Aixian looked at her for a moment. Suddenly, he pulled her into his arms. His face was calm, but there were surging emotions in his eyes. "It won't be easy for you to be alone in the future if you encounter any difficulties. Give me a call." Tears welled up in her eyes, and she swallowed them back. Su Hua said, "I wasn't in good health and had a really bad temper in the first 2 years. I made you suffer. It's all right. Take good care of yourself. You too." Su Hua slowly raised her hand and hugged him, as if they were parting for life and death. Suddenly she released him. She gave him a push, quickly wiped her face, picked up the suitcase, and turned around to leave. After walking a few steps, she suddenly heard Gubi Aixian ask, "Who is A Yao?" Her heart trembled slightly, and the foot she had lifted slowly came down. Buried memories came crashing down like a landslide. She was too sad to speak. Then she heard Gubi Aixian say, "He must be very important to you, right? I'm sorry for occupying you for 3 years. I wish you happiness." Su Hua felt a complex mix of emotions and didn't know how to respond. She slowly turned her head and looked at Gubi Aixian. He didn't smile often, but when he did, he was truly charming, like a gentle spring breeze carrying 1,000 tender feelings. His eyes were dark, clear, and sparkled like the stars in the sea. He must be very happy to be with the person he loves soon. Su Hua also smiled, a smile born out of a broken heart. "I wish you happiness too." After saying that, she turned around and got into the car. As soon as the car door closed, tears streamed down her face. The new pain combined with the old pain made her want to curl up in a ball. The driver picked up the suitcase, put it in the trunk, got into the car, and started the engine. Watching the car speed away, the smile on Gubi Aixian's lips froze in place, and the light in his eyes gradually dimmed. Su Hua returned to the Su family's home. She dragged the suitcase and entered the door. As you peel and saw her reddened, swollen eyes and then looked at the suitcase in her hands, he was greatly shocked. "My dear, what's going on?" Su Hua lowered her head to change her shoes and forced herself to look calm. Mom. I'm moving back. Su Pio An stood up from the sofa with a jerk. Are you going to separate from Gu Biaizian? Yes. His ex-girlfriend is back. On hearing this, Su Pio An became furious. 3 years ago, Gu Biaizian had a car accident. The doctors say he would never be able to leave the wheelchair for the rest of his life. His ex-girlfriend just abandoned him and ran away. It was you who accompanied him to seek medical treatment both at home and abroad, massaged his legs, and helped him with his rehabilitation. You took care of him day and night like a nanny. Now that he's able to walk and jump, that woman comes back. Tough, shameless, and goopy-eyed Yan. For such a heartless woman, he actually gave up on you. Is he blind? Su Hua bent down, took out the check from the suitcase, and stuffed it into her mother's hand. This is the compensation he gave. Su Pio stared at the long string of zeros on the check, and her eyes widened in instant counting them. There were exactly 8 euros after the one. Her expression softened a bit. This isn't about the money just because he has money. Can he bully people like this? Su Hua lowered her eyes slightly and said softly, how many couples get divorced? And the husband doesn't give the wife a single penny and even schemes against her. Some men even kill their wives just to avoid dividing the property compared to them. Gu Biaizian is actually not that bad. But can you swallow this humiliation? Su Hua gave a bitter smile. What else can I do? Cry, make a scene. Her threaten to commit suicide? Here. Is it useful to make such a mess? It's no this heart isn't with me anymore. It's pointless to force him to stay. And I can't keep him either, Mom. I'm tired and want to take a nap. Go ahead. Su Pio looked at her with pity and let out a sigh. This child was too sensible, and her sensibility made people feel heartbroken. Su Hua turned around and went to the bedrooms. He slept for 2 whole days and nights. Su Pio was so scared that she came in from time to time to check her breath. In fact, Su Hua didn't really fall asleep, she just didn't want to move. Didn't feel hungry either. Her body was weak and limp, and it felt as if a large piece of her heart was missing. She felt as if the sky had fallen on the 3rd day. Su Hua managed to get up with great effort. After washing and tidying herself up, she called Gu Biaizian. Is the divorce agreement ready? When shall we go through the procedures? Gu Biaizian was silent for a moment and then said, I'm on a business triplet. Let's talk about it when I get back. Okay, then I'm going to work. Call me in advance when you're ready to go through the procedures. Did you find a job so soon? Where is it? He asked in a concerned tone. At an antique shop. They've been calling me to join them for a while. Don't push yourself too hard. If you're short of money, just let me know. His voice was deep and gentle, as if mixed with the moonlight, making it hard to resist. Su Hua felt a pang in her heart and said distantly, I'm not short of money, thank you. After having breakfast, Su Hua took a taxi to the Guba Hai antique shop. The young master of the shop, Shen Hui, received her. Shen Hui was wearing a light blue shirt and khaki trousers. He was tall and slender, with a clean and gentle temperament. Was gentle as jade. After introducing Su Hua to the people downstairs, Shen Hui took her upstairs and introduced her to Kui Shu Sheng, the senior antique appraiser of the shop. Mr. Cui, this is Su Hua, the inheritor of the renowned master restorer. Mr. Sushi specializes in the restoration of ancient calligraphy and paintings. From now on, she'll be the antique restorer of our shop. If you're unsure about anything, you can consult her. Kui Shu Shan, who was nearly 60 years old, looked at Su Hua through his reading glasses. A young girl in her early 20s. How could she be an antique restorer? At her age, he had still been an apprentice. The young master of the shop was praising her so highly and even asking him to consult her when in doubt. He agreed on the surface, but deep down, he was very unconvinced. As soon as Shen Hui left, he asked Su Hua, Little Su, you're so young, how many years have you been in this business? Su Hua smiled faintly. About 10 years. Qi Shusheng couldn't believe it. How old are you this year? 23. Qi Shusheng thought to himself. This young girl is quite good at boasting despite her young age. Just wait for the moment when she gets slapped in the face. In this line of work, it takes real skills. Not just empty talk. Just as they were talking, a shop assistant downstairs came up to invite the MS. Yu Hua and Qi Shusheng went downstairs. They saw a man in his 30s holding a dirty and old ancient painting and asking if it could be restored. See you. As Shusheng took a quick look at it, it could hardly be called a painting anymore. It was a dark, battered, wrinkled mess with countless wormholes. With this level of damage, only top domestic restorers might have a slim chance of restoring it. He looked at Su Hua with a hint of schadenfreude. Little Su, everyone is watching you. Don Teal let them down. Su Hua walked over, picked up the painting, and examined it carefully. Then she said to the customer, "It can be restored." The customer was overjoyed. "Who will do the restoration? How long will it take?" "Me, it will be ready in 3 days. You?" The customer sized up the fresh-faced Su Hua in her early 20s, full of suspicion. "This is an authentic work by Wang Jian, one of the 4 Wangs, in the late Ming and early Qing dynasties. Its auction price starts at millions. Don't ruin it for me." Everyone else also looked at Su Hua with doubtful eyes. 3 days? That's too audacious. Qi Shusheng licked his tongue, twirled his beard, and said, "Little Su, it's a good thing that you young people are fearless like newborn calves. But you also need to know your limits. If you ruin this painting for the customer, it will damage the reputation of our Guba as a Chai. With this level of damage, even top restorers wouldn't dare to say they can finish the restoration in 3 days when they restore an ancient painting. It usually takes them months or even years." The implied meaning was, "Don't overestimate your abilities," Su Hua said firmly. "It will be done in 3 days. If I ruin it, I'll compensate you double the market price." The customer originally wanted to have the painting restored for auction. Upon hearing such a favorable condition, he immediately agreed. Words are not enough. Let's sign a contract. Okay. After estimating the price and signing the contract, Su Hua took the ancient painting to the restoration room upstairs. She pushed open the door. There were 2 half-human high large red solid wood tables in the room. Restoration tools such as flat brushes, sheep's hoof knives, sheep's stomach towels, writing brushes, and rice paper were all available. The restoration of ancient calligraphy and paintings mainly consists of 4 processes: washing, peeling, hatching, and completing. Su Hua asked someone to boil a pot of boiling water and began to rinse the ancient painting with a flat brush dipped in the boiling water. She was extremely careful with each stroke. She needed to rinse off the stains completely without letting the excessive water flow damage the fragile paper fibers of the ancient painting. It was easier said than done. Fortunately, she had been following her grandfather to restore ancient paintings since she was a child, and she was already skilled at this kind of work. Gubi Aixian's grandparents were also fond of collecting antiques. In the past 2 years, she had almost monopolized the restoration work of their family's ancient calligraphy and paintings. Not to mention a painting in this condition, she had even restored more ancient and severely damaged ones. Time was pressing, and in the following days, Su Hua was so busy that she could hardly raise her head. It was actually quite good to be busy when she was busy. She could temporarily forget about Gubi Aixian. Even her sadness was diluted. 3 days later, the customer came to pick up the paintings. Yu Hua took the restored ancient painting to the first floor. The customer was stunned when he saw the painting, which was completely different from before. "Is this the painting I brought? You didn't switch it, did you?" Qi Shusheng, the shop manager, and the shop assistants all came over and were also greatly surprised. On the ancient painting, the mountains undulated, the peaks were steep and precipitous, and the trees in the mountains were lush and vivid. Was this still the tattered ancient painting that looked like a rag and whose image couldn't be seen clearly? Su Hua said inferently, "You can use an instrument to detect its authenticity." After the inspection, the customer gave Su Hua a thumbs up, paid for the painting, and left satisfied with it in hand from then on. The news spread like wildfire. The whole antique street knew that a young and beautiful restorer of ancient paintings had joined Guba as HA. She was just in her early 20s. Yet her craftsmanship was comparable to that of a national-level restoration master. In the evening, Gubi Aizyan called and said, "My car is parked right outside your shop, come out." Hearing the familiar voice, Su Hua's heart throbbed with pain. She raised her wrist to check the time and said softly, "It's getting dark. It's too late to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau now. Can we go tomorrow morning?" Gubi Aizyan was silent for a moment. "Grandma wants to see us. She said it's something very important." Su Hua went out. She got into the car, sat down properly, and fastened her seat belt after not seeing him for a few days. Gubi Aizyan seemed to have lost a bit of weight. His already profound facial features became more angular, and his handsome eyebrows and eyes were so captivating that it was hard to look away. Su Hua realized that she still loved him deeply and simply couldn't forget him. "Here, an entry gift." Gubi Aizyan handed her an exquisite dark blue velvet jewelry box. Su Hua took it and opened it. It was an Wangzong carved from mutton fat. Jade Wangzong has been a famous jade carving for dispelling evil since ancient times. The jade carving depicts a figure in a long robe standing upright. The facial features and clothing are depicted with simple lines, and the carving technique is concise, bold, and powerful. The jade is warm, elegant, crystal clear. Hand is the finest among jades holding the jewelry box. Su Hua tilted her head to look at him and smiled faintly. "Why are you giving me such a precious gift?" Gubi Aizyan smiled lightly and stared into her eyes. "Since you restore ancient calligraphy and paintings, you will inevitably come into contact with things from ancient tombs. It's better to wear something to ward off evil. Here, let me put it on for you." He picked up the jade carving and put it around Su Hua's neck as his fingers gathered her hair. The pads of his fingers accidentally brushed against her neck. The touch was cool and penetrating. Su Hua felt a slight shiver on her skin, and even the tip of her heart trembled. He had always been sensitive to his touch. Thinking about their current relationship, Su Hua felt a pang of bitterness in her heart, forcing a smile. She said, "Don't give me things in the future." It would easily make her misunderstand that he still had feelings for her. She couldn't help but think wildly and even long for more. With his slender fingers resting on the steering wheel, Gubi Aizyan said casually, "It's just a small jade carving done. Take it to heart." He started the car. Half an hour later, they arrived at the Gu family's old residence. As soon as they entered the house, the white-haired grandma Gu tottered up to greet them. She hugged Su Hua tightly. "Oh, my dear granddaughter-in-law, I've missed you so much these few days." Su Hua always felt that Grandma's behavior today was a bit exaggerated. She usually carried herself with dignity and grace. Su Hua smiled and asked, "Grandma, what's the important thing you wanted to see me for?" Grandma took her hand and gave Gubi Aizyan a glare. "Let's have dinner first. We'll talk about it later." The meal was sumptuous, with a table full of delicacies from land and sea. Grandma kept picking food for Su Hua. She looked at Su Hua with a beaming smile and said, "3 years ago, I was choosing a wife for Bi Aizyan across the whole city among so many girls. Photos that were presented to me. I took a fancy to you at first sight. You have delicate features, a glint in your eyes, and plum earlobes. You clearly have the appearance of a woman who brings good luck to her husband." Sure enough, after Bi Aizyan married you, his legs recovered just 2 years later, and his company has been doing better and better. Suddenly, Grandma covered her mouth and coughed violently. Su Hua quickly patted her back gently. After Grandma stopped coughing, she grabbed Su Hua's hand. "You're really the best, gentle, calm, hardworking, and full of love and loyalty. In those 2 years when Bi Aizyan couldn't stand up and had a really bad temper, and many nurses and servants couldn't stand it and left, only you stayed by his side through thick and thin. If it were for you accompanying him through those difficult times, he might have been a wreck for the rest of his life." With that, Tears streamed down her face as Yu Hua quickly took a tissue to wipe away her ears. Gooby Eyes Yan's hand holding the chopsticks tightened slightly, and his eyes word even thoughtful. Grandma glanced at him undasked. Grandma only has one wish now. I hope you and Bi Aisyan will be happy together and give me a chubby great-grandchild soon. Su Hua looked at Gooby Aisyan awkwardly. It seemed that he hadn't told Grandma about their plan to divorce. Grandma's voice became weaker. I'm getting old. I might pass away someday. If I could see the birth of your child before I die, I would die without any regrets. Su Hua felt a lump in her throat and quickly said, Grandma, you will surely live a long and healthy life. I know my own body best. I'm already 80 years old. Grandma stood up with difficulty, clutching her chest. I'm feeling uncomfortable in my chest. I'm going to lie down for a while. Su Hua quickly helped her to the bedroom. When they were almost at the bedroom door, the old lady suddenly turned around and said to Gooby Eyes Yan, from tonight onwards, you two will stay here. You can move back only when Hua gets pregnant. Gooby Eyes Yan was just about to speak. The old lady, bent over and trembling with each step, shuffled into the bedrooms. Yu Hua supported her carefully, for fear that using too much strength would hurt her. After lying down on the bed, the old lady took her hand and said softly, I know you moved back to your mother's home. Don't worry. As long as I'm here, this divorce won't happen. Bi Eyes Yan is filial and he'll listen to me. But there's no but. That Suo can only share the good times, not the hardships. Such a heartless person doesn't deserve to enter a Gu family. Su Hua paused and then said, Grandma, should we call a doctor? No need. I'm old and full of ailments. Even if the doctor comes, he won't help you. Go back and have your meal. Close the door for me on your way out. Okay, then you have a good rest. As soon as Su Hua left, the old lady sat up in bed, full of energy, looking completely different from her weak appearance just now. Su Hua returned to the dining table. Grandpa Gu used tongs to put a roasted lamb shank on her plate. Little Su, eat it while it's still hot. Thank you, Grandpa. Su Hua put on a pair of disposable gloves and started to nibble on its lowly. Gooby Eyes Yan looked up at Grandpa Gu. Grandpa, Grandma seemed quite healthy the last time I saw her. It hasn't been long. How come she's become so weak? Grandpa Gu let out a deep sigh. That's how it is with old age. One moment someone can be full of vitality, and the next moment they could be gone. You'd have to get along well and don't stimulate her. Handsome face of Gooby Eyes Yan turned solemn after the meal. The two of them went back to the guest bedroom as soon as the door closed. Su, Hras, what should we do? Are we really going to stay here all the time? Gooby Eyes Yan furrowed his brows and raised his hand to loosen his tie. Grandma's in such a state that she can't stand being stimulated. Stay for a few days first and figure it out later. Su Hua looked back at the bed behind her. There's only one bed. How are we going to sleep? Gooby Eyes Yan's thin lips curved slightly. Just close your eyes and sleep. Su Hua is a bit anxious. I'm not joking. I'm serious. Gooby Eyes Yan. Su Hua went to the bathroom to wash her face and brush her teeth, and then took a quick shower. When she came back, it was Gooby Eyes Yan's turn to go in. Lying on the bed, she couldn't fall asleep. Her thoughts were all over the place. They were about to get divorced, yet they were still sleeping in the same bed. What kind of situation was this? Suddenly, Gooby Eyes Yan's phone on the bedside table rang. Su Hua didn't like the prying to his privacy, so she let it ring. It rang twice and then stopped not long after. Her phone rang to Su Hua glanced at the caller ID. It was an unfamiliar number. She answered the call, and a sweet voice came from the other end. Sister Su Hua, is Brother Bi Eyes Yan with you? May I ask who you are? The woman paused for a second and said, I'm his younger sister. Thinking it was one of Gooby Eyes Yan's cousins, Su Hua said, he's taking a shower. I'll ask him to call you back when he's out. Okay, thank you. Gooby Eyes Yan came out after his shower. He wasn't wearing any clothes except for a bath towel wrapped around his waist. Isla was holding a towel and drying his hair. His broad shoulders and long legs made for an extremely superior figure. His abdominal muscles were well defined, strong and powerful, with beautiful muscle lines under the orange light. He exuded a thrilling charm. Sue, whose heart started pounding, and her ears turned red instantly, as if they had been scorched by flames. He turned her head to avoid his gaze and said softly, "Your younger sister just called. You should call her back." Gooby Aijeon let out a faint and walked to the bedside table, picked up the phone, and took a look at it. Then he walked out. When he came back again, his handsome face was so gloomy that it seemed like water could be run out of it. He asked coldly, "Did you do it on purpose?" Suhua was taken aback. "What? Suo tried to commit suicide. What did you say to her?" Her mind went blank. After a few seconds, Suhua managed to find her voice. "I didn't know it was Suo. She said she was your younger sister. I thought she was one of your cousins. So I told her you were taking a shower." Gooby Aijeon remained silent with a cold face. He opened the wardrobe, took out his clothes, and started putting them on. After getting dressed, he took a long stride and walked out. Grandpa Gu heard the commotion and came out to ask, "It's the middle of the night. Where are you going?" Gooby Aijeon said in a deep voice, "I have something to take care of outside." "What's the matter?" Suo is in the hospital. I'm going to visit her." Grandpa Gu raised his voice and said to Suhua in the guest bedroom, "Little Sue, you go with him." Grandpa Gu was resolute and uncompromising. Suhua didn't dare to disobey him and replied, "Okay, Grandpa." She put on her clothes and left with Gooby Aijeon. After the car passed an intersection, Suhua said, "Just drop me off at any hotel." Gooby Aijeon held the steering wheel and looked straight ahead. "Come with me. You need to explain things to Suo. Suhua felt a tightness in her chest. Although she had a common peace-loving nature, she also had her own bottom line. It wasn't her fault in the first place, so what was there to explain? Sensing her unhappiness, Gooby Aijeon freed one hand and ruffled her hair, saying gently, Suo has severe depression. Consider it a favor for me." An hour later, the two of them arrived at Suo's hospital room. She had just had her stomach pumped and was lying on the hospital bed, looking extremely pale, with her hair in a mess. Her figure under the quilt was thin and frail. When Suhua saw her clearly, she was greatly astonished. Suo's small, pale face was incredibly similar to her own. It was hard to say exactly where the similarity lay, but at first glance, they looked very much alike. It took a few more looks to tell them apart. Upon closer inspection, Suo was the delicate type. Her eyebrows were curved, her brow was slightly furrowed, her nose was small and dainty, and her mouth was like a cherry. Her features had a fragile quality like glass. Suhua had a bit more tranquility and indifference, as well as an inner resilience that emanated from her bones. Only at this moment did Suhua realize that she was just a substitute in Gooby Aijeon's heart. She smiled self-deprecating. Why? No wonder he had agreed to get the marriage certificate just by looking at her 3 years ago. This was the reason. Aijeon, you're here. Suo's mother, Huakir forced a smile and greeted him. When her gaze swept over Suhua, her eyes were not very friendly. Gooby Aijeon nodded slightly as a response. Huakir walked to the bedside and gently patted Suo's shoulder. Suo, your brother Aijeon is here to see you. Suo slowly opened her eyes. Her gaze swept across Suhua's face, and she didn't seem overly surprised. It was as if she had already known about their resemblance. She looked at Gooby Aijeon, with tears welling in her eyes, and said softly and weakly, "Brother Aijeon, I didn't try to commit suicide. I just couldn't fall asleep. So I took a few more sleeping pills. My mom made a big fuss and insisted on sending me to the hospital to have my stomach pumped. I'm really sorry to have troubled you and Sister Suhua to come all the way here so late at night." Huakir said with red eyes, half chiding, "Was it just a few pills? You took most of a bottle. If I hadn't found out in time, you would have." She covered her mouth and began to sob. Jean walked over and sat down by the bedside. He looked down at Suo with a doting tone and said with a hint of reproach, "Don't do such a silly thing again, okay?" "Okay?" Suo pouted and nodded with tears in her eyes. Looking so innocent and pitiful, Jean took out a handkerchief and carefully wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes. His movements as gentle, as if he were wiping the most precious porcelain. The way he looked at her was as tender as water. Full of pity, Su, who was stared blankly at Jean.